And then we'll ask Ms. Early to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Shall we call the roll?
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mrs. Stingle Sains? Here. Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Thompson?
Here.
We have a quorum. We have a full house. Good. Each of you should have a copy of the minutes from our last regularly scheduled meeting. If you'd like to take those over, take a moment to look those over for any possible corrections or additions.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second, Mayor.
And seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Also, each of you should have received a copy of our latest check register in your packet. If you could indicate if you received that. Thank you. Now we're at the part of our agenda that is for public comments, and remarkably, no one has signed up for public comments. But is there anyone from the audience that would like to address the council, other than agenda items? Yes, sir.
I would.
Please.
This is my first time here, so I apologize if I...
That's all right.
My name is Scott Picar. I'm with Worldwide Equipment. We're a commercial truck dealer. I'm here in reference to a bid last week. Submitted a bid for a brush loader truck, and I just wanted to make sure everybody understood the product I'm bidding is called Hino, but it's a Toyota Group product, so it is a Toyota manufactured truck. I don't think I need to tell anybody here the impact that Toyota has in this, in this area. Also, just want to say that my company, Worldwide Equipment, has owned 34 acres right off of I-70, right around the corner from the Public Works garage, and someday we will build a dealership there. So we have been invested in the city for some time, and I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. I was not the low bid. I was in the middle. I also just want to put the pitch in for the Toyota product, and the standard warranty that comes with the Toyota truck is far superior than the standard warranty on the other truck's bid. So if you factor in the cost of additional warranty to get a level playing field, I think that would be something to consider. And that was really all I had.
All right, well, you saved yourself a lot of time. That is on our agenda.
Okay.
For the last item on the meeting.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and accept your comment now, and thank you very much.
I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Under mayor's comments, I go with the printed order first. So we have some guests here that we can let speak and then move on with their evening. The first thing we have is an executive order appointing James Stone to the Georgetown Scott County Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a joint city-county appointment. It is to replace Johnny Cannon, who recently died. And the judge and I discussed this. Mr. Stone, lifetime resident of Scott County. He's both a realtor, auctioneer, and farmer. So felt
Make
he
a
would.
motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I
You bring
know
good
it.
perspective.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
All right.
Second.
And second. Karen? If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item B is something that council's been waiting on for some time, and I know they're excited about the presentation about the cemetery wall. We have representatives here from Branstetter Carroll tonight, and as promised, we've got a number of drawings that they will explain to the council and the work that's been done, and some of the decision points that will be before the council as we put this out to bid. But we wanted you to understand what some of the decision points were And then some design changes we want your all's opinions on. But rather than hash through all of those, getting you to weigh in on those choices tonight, we'll probably go through all the detail tonight and send you an electronic opportunity to give us some of your thoughts about which designs you like best. Once we come to our conclusions, then we'll see about bidding this project. So who will speak for the company to start with? Charlie, are you the?
Yes.
Good.
Good evening. I'm Charlie Schneider with Branson & Carroll, here to talk about the cemetery wall replacement and answer any questions that y'all might have about it. Sure. Ben Branstetter is also with us.
Hey.
So I'm sure as y'all are aware, the wall is failing on the north side of the gate. So that's really is what started this conversation. We needed to replace the wall or find a way to do something else to make it easier to maintain, something that will last long, and something that's not going to be as costly as a direct replacement of that retaining wall. The concept that we came up with was putting a shorter retaining wall against the sidewalk. This wall will be about 18 inches tall, and it goes deeper down beneath the sidewalk to prevent any kind of failures in the future. But it would allow us to make an even slope from the top down, so it's easier to maintain. And then to replace the wall feature of it and to add some beauty back to it, we came up with the concept of doing a decorative metal fence with stone columns placed every 50 feet to create an attractive replacement of what was there. The wall material existing is it's a CMU kind of block. It's something that's not available anymore. It's something that takes on a lot of moisture over time, as one of the reasons this began to fail. So that's why we've looked at going with something that's more of a cast-in-place concrete that's going to last, and to add the decorative fence and columns along the top. Now on the south side of the gate, as you know, there's not as much of a grade problem, not any grade problem. So we will just have just the fence and the columns, again spaced every 50 feet down the length of the wall. Some of the different options that we have looked at with regards to the fence type mainly have to do with the decorative nature of the fence at the top, and those really just become a choice of what y'all would like to see out there. Any of them you could add more adornments to. You can add those circles that create just a little bit more to it, or you can keep it a little bit more simple and have less or more on top of it. It's really just a function of what y'all are looking for. The columns themselves will be 2 foot by 2 foot masonry columns with a stone veneer. They will have a nice cap on the top. It's a precast piece. Just very simple from there.
So what's obviously I see a difference between the hand rendering and the photo in the top right corner.
So the main difference here, I guess you'd see this stone wall in between. What we're actually proposing would be these stone columns and not to have the stone wall in place.
Okay.
So they would look more like either one of these options here.
Yeah.
Just really like this style and color of the stone. I thought that was really close to what was out there now with the existing gate.
But you said 50 feet. That's obviously not close to 50 feet right there.
Now 50 feet would be closer to this right here. That's spacing. Again, we're looking at the style of this column, not necessarily how it's put into that.
Yeah.
Couldn't find a nice representation of that color stone and that size column that was laid out the way we're proposing.
So now, on this side of the closest to town side of the fence, it's going to go. The fence is going to go up on the hill, hill slope.
Yes. So the fence will sit about 20 feet off the sidewalk.
Well, had you in your ideals thought about putting I may understand why you don't want to put back a whole solid wall like it's currently there, but have you thought about, like the picture that's up in the corner, putting back 3 or 4 foot of wall and then the gate on top of it? Because to be honest with you, I don't like any of these that have just the gate like on the bottom picture, because that would probably be the closest to what we're talking about.
Yes.
It would be. I don't like that, and I don't think most of Georgetown would like that. Now, I know there's a cost difference, but had you able to do that, to put half a knee wall at least, and then put the gate on top of it and put the pillars a little closer? I know it's costing more money.
It can be done, yes, it's just a matter of the budget.
And I don't know, that looks like a fence that you're using around any upscale subdivision or park. And I really think people at Georgetown have a stronger fondness for that, even maybe a certain amount of a romantic emotion to it, because it's historical and our loved ones are buried there, and we want something that looks like more than just an average fence around that would be put up around any park or any subdivision. So I'm not really thrilled with any of those, except the one that's up in that corner as maybe a compromise, if we could work something like that into the budget. But that's my opinion, that's not the rest of the council.
Right.
Although, Karen, I will say that the intention from the very beginning of this design exercise was to do exactly what you said. I think we all recognize that this is a special place. And that's been our stated goal throughout this. In fact, we talked at length about stone columns and wrought iron fence in between them. So I'm not surprised by some of these examples. Just in terms of scale of the project and the expense of the project, since this is going to be balancing the beauty that's needed for the cemetery with what our financial realities are. This fence is 1,100 feet long.
Correct.
It is an extremely long fence. If we use post it all in whatever iteration, that means that if we keep them 50 feet apart, there will need to be 22 stone
Beginning and
columns.
ending.
If we did have, what spacing?
If we do 50-foot spacing, that means a minimum of 22 of these columns. These columns are estimated to cost $5,000 apiece. So we begin to choose how many we want to buy. That's why I want us to understand the designs, understand what our options are, and then we'll bid it and we'll apply real cost to this. Some of the designs that we've seen here, if we go with wrought iron, we can easily build a $500,000 fence.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty quick.
Despite how much we want to beautify Georgetown Cemetery, I'm not sure council's prepared to spend $500,000 on that fence.
Is this not a shared local with the county?
Interlocal.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Well,
Yes,
It might be.
It should
it
be.
might
Yeah, it
be.
should be.
We're
We
gonna
have
explore.
county residents input in it.
It says Georgetown Scott County Cemetery, right?
Yeah, it should be.
It's actually the Georgetown Cemetery.
It is a Georgetown. No, it is.
We do have an interlocal agreement.
It is.
So,
Wow.
point being, it's an opportunity to make a real statement.
Yeah.
And it's our chance to build something beautiful.
Well, that's what we want to do if we do it, we want it right.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So if we understand our design options and our cost, then we can begin having realistic deliberations. And so that's what I wanted our architects, just to make sure we understood some of the choices. But I think we should be very careful and listen to feedback like Karen gave us. I think every council member ought to look at these drawings, kind of access their own feelings about the cemetery, and give you that feedback. I think it's absolutely.
We need to put these on.
I can't imagine if you did, well, I know we're increasing the price. I have no idea. I know
Let the
that.
citizens-
But
let-
even if you left it at 50 feet in between the columns, if you're saying that still, if you even did a knee wall that maybe it's not 4 foot, but you do a knee wall that's a couple of foot tall or something like that, and figure out, I know you all can come up with a close cost estimate. I know that's not a problem, but to come up with a close cost estimate as to what we're looking at, because the last time this fence was done was how many years ago?
100 more.
And we really didn't do much to it since 100 years ago. So if we spend $500,000 on this and we don't touch it for another 100 years,
Should last longer.
well, we want it to last longer than that. So I think it's something that needs to be done and done to the point that these are nice fences, there's nothing wrong with these fences, I don't mean to say that, but something that is a little bit more special. Because when I also saw, I thought about two things. I thought about being like around a upscale subdivision, and then the other thing I thought about is it looks like it's bars keeping the folks that have laid there in. And I thought, no, it needs to be something a little bit more special for, of course, my parents are there, so it's personal to me too.
Ben, what would you think if we did something more monumental, like on the corners on the entrance?
Well, do you have to take the entrance down as it is? Can you not?
The entrance piece, we're leaving,
Yes.
we're leaving in place.
Yes, right.
So we're just gonna attach to the end of the entrance pieces. So
The end of each.
The actual stone, like the field stone curved entrance will stay.
Or even if you could do something then, like Chuck's saying, that would help economically, if, okay, the length of the fence, if where you having the entrance is the same, the historical entrance, that maybe somewhere in the middle of that long fence, then you do something historical there. Whether you come up with a feature that you can use the blocks that you're taking out and keep them there for the historical value and make a showpiece there in the center instead of doing all the way across or something like that.
Well, those blocks are poured. We can't reuse those blocks, can we?
I don't think those blocks would be reusable.
None of them?
They've reached their life.
Okay. Well, they're only 100+ years old. So.
Yeah.
So
That's
can
why
I
got the money out of it.
Can I ask a question that maybe helps Karen, maybe it helps all of us a little bit? But just above the sidewalk, you talked about that very short retaining wall. How many inches high was that proposed?
It's 18 inches above the concrete, but the wall itself is about 3.5 feet tall.
So I'm just throwing this out, just because sometimes we bounce ideas, but could that be stone? Could that be real stone up, maybe 24 inches tall to kind of give it that more stately look, and then put that type of fencing with closer columns between it?
Absolutely. And that type of wall's used all over the state. And once you get a little bit higher than that 18 inches, if you had a 2-foot or 3-foot wall there, it actually does a couple of things. One, it allows you to place a facing on it, to use the cast-in-place forms to create the stone look on that wall, to create a nice stone wall at the base. And it also helps to flatten out the slope, which right now, what we're proposing is still going to be a fairly steep slope of 3-to-1. If we raise that up a little bit, we start to get a 4-to-1 slope that makes mowing and caretaking much easier.
So ironically, not long ago, I priced aluminum. Are you proposing aluminum or actual?
Yeah, so we've talked about different materials. We're going
Okay.
to look at prices on each going to the bid, but
I mean,
these are aluminum.
Mine installed was close to $70 a lineal foot.
That's a good price.
I think we're talking about the ability for us to bid it out in multiple alternatives.
Sure.
Give it a little bit longer lead time on the bid, and then they'll say, it's this much per linear foot for actual wrought iron, it's this much for commercial grade aluminum, it's this much for a heavier grade.
We looked at
steel.
costs of 2 different grades of aluminum, but my thought is eventually, if this fence is going to last 100 years or longer, it needs to be wrought iron.
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
But you might be able to replace it every few years I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
The aluminum fence we talked about, the commercial grade only has a lifespan of 20 to 25 years.
They warrant
Really?
We are gonna replace it every 25 years if you don't
They
do it.
warrant it.
bad.
They warrant it for 25 years. I would
You
expect
could last
it.
a little longer,
It
but
would last a little longer. This
Probably
is
not.
somewhat of a low traffic area, especially up on top of the slope. Down closer to the road, you get a little bit more traffic. If it was in some other area that was a much higher use where people could be running sticks on it or touching it all the time, then yeah, it would not last that 25 years.
Well, I think that's the thing, is so many people walk by there. I know we all see when we're driving, it's heavily traveled through there.
it was.
Can I ask another
It
question?
was, not
Yeah.
anymore, but-
On some signage that perhaps we've had put on buildings, they've taken a photograph of the building and then they've imposed a sign, what it was going to look like. I mean, it looks like the real thing. And do you all have the ability to do something like that?
Sure.
Take a picture of, the landscape
Right.
and say, hey, this is what it's going to look like
With the stone.
when,
Yeah.
in a relatively easy and inexpensive manner.
It's not horrible. Yeah, I mean, we could do it. It takes some time. And money.
The reason I say that,
To render.
Karen's right. All these are nice, but I think we want something really nice that's going to look good for the next 100 years. And if it's the iron, then so be it. If it's aluminum that needs to be replaced every 25 or 30 years, maybe that's
I
okay
think
too.
Karen's right. We owe it to the community to make this look as nice and as pretty as we can, and see what we can do with it. Not bland, but
Yeah,
spectacular.
and maybe if you did 24 or 30 inches or whatever on, maybe then there's a nice looking hedge above it, to give it a little bit of landscape.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
that's a good
something we could
idea.
come back and bring in some color, get somebody to, well, you all do that, right? You did landscape architectural design.
Absolutely,
They don't go
yes,
crazy.
yes.
And I'm not trying to spend their money, but I mean, we all want it to look
We-
nice,
we have-
Mayor.
We have,
Oh, we have-
we have one chance to do this,
That's
and
right.
nobody's had a chance to do it for 100 years.
Yeah.
And we can let.
Nobody's gonna have a chance for another
There you
100
go.
years, so we'll take our time. What I did want to mention on behalf of our architects, when we got into this project, we had an idea of what we thought it wanted to look like. We wanted to understand how it would work and what it would look like, and we frankly approached long-term partners of ours that have worked on a number of projects for us, and we offered them a ridiculously low sum of money to do this project for us. And frankly, it's true.
They're still
And
laughing about
now
it.
I have blown it far beyond what they originally agreed to do. We've insisted on images and other things, and we may, as we work through these additional details and other opportunities, we may have to reconsider our contract negotiation.
I believe he's
but
getting ready
I
to do
just
it
want to
right now.
be clear that we probably exceeded scope of work on.
You know what the answer is.
Strike now, strike now.
No, Mayor, I appreciate that, but, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sitting here just, I'm energized by the passion for this. And actually, I really do appreciate the comments, because we come at it with we have a problem that we need to solve kind of mentality. And sometimes you don't always get to know how this project fits within the city. And so I've been taking some notes down, and it's fun to see that. We want to make sure that this is going to last for a long time. And I've got a couple of concerns technically about how we're going to do a few things. That's why I'm taking some notes, and mainly the cost. But it sounds like you guys want to make sure that something just lasts,
Yeah.
and frankly, I want to be excited when I drive by it as well. So we're gonna get there. I'm not worried about that.
Well, and
I think we want to ask it.
we will give you additional feedback from all these, but I think you're beginning to get a sense of how important this is and what bar the council expects.
And I think that the challenge with doing we're taking a photo and doing a rendering is these slopes are going to be very challenging to represent.
I understand.
Because we're kind of going from a 2-to-1 to flattening this thing out.
I understand.
That's why we felt like this was a better representation.
Okay.
Of what that's going to look like.
Okay.
We can see what we can do, but.
No, that's
it's very-
okay. Whatever you
very
can do.
difficult That the eye perspective, very
Yeah.
challenging to kind of, those subtleties of those grades kind of come across in a photo and a rendering.
That makes sense.
But I do like that idea of kind of pulling that stone, pulling it down here.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that, because I think that can be economically done with a form liner, where it's going to start to get more expensive, that if it does become a veneer, then you put a stone in front of that. So
Okay.
we just need to kind of work with staff on what
That's fine.
the cost impacts are going to be and what the cost sensitivity is going to be for you guys.
And if you've ever driven down Richmond roads and say widen it in Lexington where they put the retaining walls and they did the stone, you've noticed how much those stones have popped off the wall. So
Yeah.
anytime you put a veneer on a retaining wall with all that moisture behind there, you start to add to the complexity of that. That's where the form liners really do make a good solution.
We've had these up in the office for several days, and I assure you, every single staff member in City Hall that's walked by has pointed to the upper right picture on the first one.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And said, that's what I want.
I said, oh, that's pretty.
And Andrew and I have said to every one of them, you can't afford it. So we hear you.
That is the closest of all those. That would be the closest. So if you can take that ideal and then incorporate it in with what you've done on your rendering, that.
Down there?
Well, actually, no. Up into the fence. Up
She
into.
wants it to be a part of the
She wants that fence to be about half as tall,
And
or
even for economic purposes, since it's so long, if it has to be, okay, we're gonna go with the straight fence column, then we're gonna do a knee wall for so long, and then we're gonna do column, and we're gonna do the wrought iron on top, and then we're gonna go straight fence. I mean, even if that has to
Break up
break it up to go across there, I still think that's better than just having the one that
Wrought
you've
iron.
done the rendering on.
Another option we could look at too, the wall on the south side, if you take that as a model, that wall is probably 36 inches tall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're showing a 6-foot fence here with 6-foot columns. If we start bringing that back down to what's out there on a 36-inch tall wall, you bring the cost of the columns down and start to put that material in that knee wall in
Exactly.
between. Problem is, we're still having to build a foundation underneath it the entire way, which we wouldn't have to with the fence.
That's the cost.
That's a cost.
That's the
but
hidden cost.
But we could start, instead of having this
It literally will
6-foot
be hidden.
section, you could start looking at, and we wouldn't need to put the wrought iron on top either. We're not really trying to keep people from coming in or out through this. We're trying to create a boundary, you
beautification.
know,
What's
that
in-
looks
Beautification.
nice. Right, it's create an edge.
I mean, I want to make sure, just for staff purposes and talking about it, are you all suggesting not putting it at the top of the hill? Putting it
No,
back down?
at the top, yeah. 'Cause
Well, I
that's,
guess there's two different options.
yeah.
We were talking about putting it, we could put it down here possibly and create that wall here. But maybe on the other, and maybe we do that. Maybe this stays fenced up here, we do the wall here. But on the south side, it becomes something more like this.
Yeah, the only issue I see is the reason you're able to get away with putting that fence at the top of the hill is because you can see through it. If you put a wall at the top of the hill, then suddenly you just got a wall and nobody knows what's there.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, you can show us a couple of options, I guess.
Yes, yeah. I definitely got a lot more ideas that we could take back to our landscape architects and let them work on it and come up with a couple of different sketches and try and get some handles on what the cost implications would be of those.
Well, one thing's for certain, this project here needs to be done correctly and right, because it's going to affect a lot of families in this community that is looking for something, the way we're talking, that just sits out there and is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people go in and out of the cemetery here all the time,
Every
either
day.
to walk because their family are
to
there,
visit,
just
yeah.
to go into our cemetery. People really appreciate that cemetery. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be sitting in this seat if it wasn't for that cemetery and standing up for it before. So it needs to be done right,
Yes.
and then outlast all of us.
I think we all agree on that.
The stone
We
house
want-
is so pretty there too, if the fence complements the stone house
Yeah,
and the
the
wrought iron
architecture.
gates off
Should we try to
Hamilton
match up that stone?
is close to the house.
To the
Good
house,
idea,
Mm-hmm.
David.
Well, you're
That
leaving
would-
the gate. You're leaving the gate.
the
That's
gate
right
would be
by the
harder to
house, yeah.
match. I
Yeah.
think the house would be easier to,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
yeah.
Okay.
But,
It's on the right-hand side of the, toward Lexington.
and we would be looking at a natural stone solution to this. We wouldn't want to go back to a cultured stone. So it'd be easier to match with a natural stone than it would be a cultured stone. The manufactured stone, I mean, it looks good, but it just doesn't have that same feel.
That's a.
The
pretty-
age of it, yeah,
That's a
the
pretty
look.
big. That's a pretty big project. Let's say we get everything worked out and have the money to do it, how long would it take to do something like that? I shouldn't ask that question, should I?
It's good you did.
The cost implications are also time implications. When you bring the fencing goes a lot quicker than a wall. would
Right,
go.
right.
Much quicker. So, you might take what would be
Labor
a 3 or 4 month long project and take it to be 6 months long.
Okay.
And of course, that starts stretching it into, are we now into a bad weather period where we have the work
Wait
gets
till spring.
extended because they can't work.
Okay.
So when you come back with, I'm assuming you're coming back with another rendering? Or
Yes, yes.
on the north end, from the main gate moving north, can we see a rendering on the bottom as well as the top? The bottom of that slope as well as the top. Is that correct? We're going to see one on the bottom and also the top.
Yes, you see a wall on the bottom.
Okay.
Yes, or we could leave it as is and add, yes, we'll be able to do that.
There'll be lots of design choices and decision points. One thing I have noticed is a lot of the fence styles have the adornments on the
Yes.
top. And while I think the adornments are beautiful, our experience at Royal Spring Park, where we've got extensive wrought iron fencing that started with adornments.
You are so right.
They're gone.
Now about
Yeah,
half of the
you're so
adornments
right.
are gone,
Yep.
and about, or less than half are there. So I just want us to be cautious about things that may not retain their symmetry and their beauty. I know some are pressed, but that's in the aluminum ones. But
Right.
the adornment sometimes are targets for vandals.
Yeah.
Have you had that problem before? We've
Yes,
got it
yeah.
here.
And I think if you go to more of the wrought iron solution, where those adornments are more part of the fence and not just attachments to it, that you would have less of a problem with that. But, yeah, you're right, if you have people out there, yeah, they can.
What else do we need to discuss tonight?
Well, I think you guys would just spend a little bit of time, not tonight at the meeting in terms of making a decision, but try to provide us some feedback on the fencing styles themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Where exactly where you're going with that? If you just, if we could get some consensus on what that's gonna, the preferences on that.
And that could be almost the line drawings, is that
Yes.
correct?
The line drawings really help represent
Your
those.
page 3 is
your-
where some of these decisions, where your personal preferences may come into play. They're going to give us larger design considerations, but these are some details.
And the combinations with these are almost endless. Mix and match to get what you want and the style you want.
Charlie, on the picture that everybody loves so much, what is the construction style of that wall in between? What does that involve?
Talking about this section
That section
there.
would be a masonry wall with a stone veneer.
Stone veneer.
I'm assuming. Going back with natural stone that low and not having any retaining wall properties to it, you might be able to do a natural stone wall. I'd have to refer to our landscape architect on that one. He's a little more of an expert. But generally, they have a CMU core to them.
I like that wrought iron that's there in that picture, that goes on that stone. Which one is that on the drawing?
That's probably closer with this,
Yeah.
with style 5,
Yeah.
Full panel view's not bad either.
or 1 and 5, depending on how ornate that
One's
top
okay.
is.
One's okay.
Okay. And then the other detail is that bar,
Yeah.
a little bit below that. It's just, I think,
Most all of them have their on there.
yeah, the one on the
Yeah.
top does not, but this one, the one on the bottom right does.
The second bar?
Yeah.
Correct.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, almost all the 6-foot tall fences have the double bar at the top anymore.
Yeah.
This is just a shorter piece, and they can get away with the single bar.
Are we doing a 6-foot fence? I thought we were
It
doing knee
depends which
wall.
option we go with.
I like the knee wall with the short fence.
And then have it brick or block in the middle.
Oh, I can spend some money now.
But again, even with the knee wall, I mean, there could be an option of the knee wall without a fence on top of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a possibility as well.
I do feel like we're getting concepts a little bit confused. I mean, so you got the knee wall that's in your picture there, the 18-inch cast knee wall. And let's be clear, that starts at the north end of the cemetery, and in the drawing only goes maybe, 300 or 400 feet, and then ends.
Yeah, about 75 feet from the gate.
Because the whole purpose of that is just for retainage,
Right.
not actual decoration.
Right.
Are you all talking about replacing that? When you say knee wall, are we talking about scrapping that and making that ornamental and perhaps a fence on top of that? Or, I mean, yeah, I'm seeing you shake your head.
I have two different options I've heard. I've heard making this lower wall more taller and more decorative.
Sure.
Leaving the fence as is. And then the other option I've heard is leaving this as is an 18-inch wall, and bringing some kind of knee wall like this up to the top of the slope.
Right.
So that's the two different
I
options
think,
I've heard.
I think you got it.
You're right on it.
I'm just concerned, like what Andrew said, is if you do the higher wall up top, that you're gonna lose some of your
You won't see any,
view.
you won't see any of the cemetery at
Yeah.
that point.
Now
But
we're gonna back
I-
over there and see what you see now.
Because the vehicle is, you know, you're
Yeah, you're
down
looking up.
low,
Yeah.
but you're compared to what it is today.
What it is today, you don't see too much. You see a little bit when you're coming right past the, like you're coming towards town, you come right past the gate, you do see up into the cemetery. But then as you're going closer to the stoplight, you don't really see up into the cemetery at that point.
There's a lot of
Because
trees
of the
and
land.
everything.
Because
right
the
there.
change has already
Landscape's a
happened.
little different too.
But-
I could actually see this going, taking the south side into consideration, where on the north side you had a taller decorative wall with the fence that you can see into the cemetery. But on the south side, there is no fence, basically just a replacement of the wall that's there to help bring that decorative wall into place,
different material.
but no fencing. Yeah.
If you
We
give
don't
us,
have a picture
if you
of the
give us
south side.
renderings for the next time, they probably don't have to be quite as detailed as you have, even if it's a pencil sketch. That would probably be enough for us to.
Yes, yeah, I think
Right
we
on.
could come up with 3 or 4 different pencil sketches of the north and south side.
Okay.
That would really do it,
He's
yeah.
great.
Absolutely.
I appreciate the fact that this has become a more collaborative process very quickly, which is what needed to happen. Frankly, so I appreciate your all's response to the council's questions. That's been helpful, that attitude's been helpful.
It's a very prideful project, too.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it'll definitely be one that you'll put on your company brochure. After it's built, I'm sure you-
We would hope you would anyway. We get a percentage off of that or something?
We better now.
Okay. Any other points that council would like to make with these gentlemen before they go?
Thank you all for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what it's gonna be
Yeah,
like.
too.
I'd rather take our time
Yeah,
and do it
Yeah.
right.
and just get it right and.
I think we talked ourselves into an upgrade tonight.
Yeah.
What we
Yeah.
did.
If we can just find the money.
I guess
Yeah.
we could get, at the next meeting,
Go Carson.
do you want to try to build consensus around these types of details, or do we still want to focus on this and this?
If you
I think-
focus on that, and that just, I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Well,
I was just gonna say, if you focus on that and that will be easy, the little details will be easy if
I
we
agree
focus
with
on
you.
that and that.
And we can almost poll council by email on some of these little details
I think
and
so.
and
That's a
get
good
consensus
idea.
that way.
Yeah, that's a good
And you all
idea.
work on these big images.
That's
I
it.
think you're right.
We just make sure we focus our efforts, the next time we come, we get the right feedback.
Yeah, we're here every 2 weeks. So, is that right, Mayor?
Same bad time, same bad place.
So Mayor,
6 o'clock.
real quick though, the top of the fence that he's asking about, if you go with aluminum, I'm not sure if you can have the adornments or not, or if it's just gonna be the pressed aluminum in the little,
Point.
with the little points and
They
so
do
forth.
sell the
Aluminum, I think
adornments
it
on
is.
the aluminum fence.
You can do that?
In this line, it's a light commercial line that we
Okay.
were looking at. They
But-
have those available.
Is that what we've had problems with, or has it been the actual iron?
Well,
Let's go to
Yeah,
Royal
you
Spring
can
Park and
say
think.
All
I
right.
think we put
Yeah.
cast iron down there, and I think they've been snapped off.
Oh, my God.
Really?
Yeah, we ought to go, just do a field
Great.
trip one day when you're down there, eyeball them and see what you think.
At some point, I think it becomes a challenge to people.
I think to vandals, sometimes
Yeah.
it is, oh, you think I can't break that?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't think I can get away
Watch
with this?
this.
Watch
We've
this.
had plenty of vandalism in the cemetery too, unfortunately.
The first engineer I ever worked for designed a concrete picnic table that he thought would withstand anything. First time it was built, he went out to the park and he saw a guy standing on top of it with a jackhammer.
oh my God.
He left out the hole for the umbrella. So he was putting in a hole for the umbrella. That was revision number 1.
Ah,
Wow.
That would've been scary.
wow.
Should we leave these for council and staff to continue discussion?
We've
That
got
would be
these here.
Yes, and we've got these images.
You'll leave the board.
But the boards will be helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
I like the look of it.
Yeah, you may.
Garage was broken into.
Okay, those are the printed items for mayor's comments. And
That's good.
now you're shocked that we have others. Just a couple of things to update everybody on. Of course, we've got our 4th of July parade on the 4th of July at 11 o'clock. And if any council member would like to ride in that parade, there's a ladder truck with your name on it, and they'd be glad to have you, so.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
We'll be there.
Also, we will have our second party on the park this Saturday at 7 o'clock down at Royal Spring Park. Also, I think tomorrow night, Marvin, we start the fair,
We hope we do.
weather permitting.
Yeah, we'll be out there, so yeah, it's gonna be we've got different things. We got a country singer putting in a show and a few other different things this year, so it's gonna be interesting. We
Good.
pray for good weather.
Pray for good weather. Also, I want to let the council know that Dusty Carter has retired as Director of Code Enforcement. Barb retired a couple of years ago, and my guess is they're out shopping for an RV. But, so that has occurred. I was asked to give a clarification, David, to the council, but specifically to a question you asked 2 weeks ago. Hey, David.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I was putting in my little count here.
Yeah. I was asked to clarify something for a question that you asked at the last council meeting. And Stacy and I thought we answered it well, but Lewis Wolf asked me to specifically point out to the council that while Stacy reported at the last meeting that we had only received our policy a week before that meeting, that we had the numbers on workers' compensation from back in middle of May. And Lewis asked that I specifically give you that information.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't change my recommendation that there was no time to bid anything, but I was asked to do that, so I have. Also wanted to let you know that we've been making some excellent progress. Chief Bossy and Chief Swanigan have been working with Megan and others. We're making some good progress on the concept of the school safety program that we had talked with the council. Our concept of hiring the recently retired officers on a part-time basis to be able to get those efficiencies to get 2 additional officers into the schools, and doing that with part-time officers. We have proceeded tonight, or later in the meeting, we bring you an amended personnel ordinance. It will include 5 part-time police officers so that we can create the pool of part-time employees, so we don't employ any of those people more than 100 hours a month. So we need a pool of 5 part-time employees to always have those 2 that will work within the program that we've described. The one change that I want to give you tonight is that since we actually had our meeting over at the police department, and Jennifer wrote a nice article about it, there are some changes in the way we're going to approach that program. And it's very simply that the city and the county both have concerns about school safety, and each intend to make a contribution toward school safety. But I think the county is going to do this in a different format, probably through, it may be through another sheriff's deputy that they hire. We intend to move forward with the program that we outlined. We'll simply do it with the Georgetown Police Department managing. They were going to manage the hours anyway. Our new personnel program that you all provided for us gives us the ability to manage these part-time people. So we have the software, we have the personnel department capacity to do this. So we have placed the ad for the officers. It is on the police department's website. It is on the city's website, and it will be in the news graphic so that we can move forward. There's no real sense of urgency other than being ready on the first day of school. And Dwayne Ellison is working with the superintendent and has agreed to sit with us on this committee to help evaluate the officers that might be hired.
So Mayor, it's not gonna be a 50-50
That's correct.
effort with the county. They're gonna do their own thing, and we're gonna do our own thing.
Yes, sir. So at this point, David, the council has budgeted for the new fiscal year that will begin July 1, when this program will begin. We've budgeted $25,000. That will enable us to run this program entirely on our own for 6 months. We can report back to you results and then consider that second 6 months funding in our amended budget. Again, the message here is that each city and county government care about school safety, and we're going at this from collaborative ways, coordinated ways.
And I'm sure still working together. And if they're gonna have an officer
We'll
on
have-
site, and we're gonna have an officer on site, there's gotta be collaboration and working together,
There
for
will,
sure.
and we'll actually, our plan will have 2.
Okay.
So between the 2 of us, we're adding a total of 3. That's good. We've also had some real good responses from the school system concerning rerouting of traffic with our CMAC grant. So that continues to be evaluated by the local school board personnel. Then I think our engineers go with them to Frankfurt, to the State Board of Education, and then once they get some sign off from them, the local board makes the decision on those particular traffic changes. This part of the reason we have to go to the state is that this grant will require some of the grant dollars to be spent on school property. So we have to go to the grant maker and make sure that we get all that worked out. So little by little, it's technical, but we think we're going to get all these changes made. And that is the end of my mayor comments. Chase, I think you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Georgetown Municipal has 3 items tonight to bring before you for consideration. And Sean and I are here to present those and answer your questions as best we can. Just note at the top, all 3 of these items are line items in our FY19 budget that we brought before you at the previous meeting. First is a purchase order to Bennett and Williams, and this is in the amount of $32,000, and this is for development and implementation of our digital work order system called Workforce, and that integrates with our existing systems. And when we presented our budget, we presented a graphic that showed our rapid growth in customer base and how that has exponentially grown, and our workforce numbers have remained relatively constant. This is one of those measures that we're putting in, taking our work order system from handwritten paper copies to digital, that we can type out a work order on the computer. It gets sent electronically to the tablets that are in our operations staff trucks. Saves time, streamlines our processes.
Motion made.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no questions for Chase, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Chase.
Thank you. Second purchase order is to Jave. That is our contractor on our operations center. And this is a change order, but it worked in, as I said, to our FY19 budget. And we're doing this operations center in 2 phases. First phase we're doing currently. We asked the contractor, while he's on site with earth moving equipment, to go ahead and do the earthworks for phase 2 as well. And that is mainly hammering out the rock with a track hoe and hoe ram for the foundations for phase 2. We figured that that's going to, 1, save on mobilization costs from the second contractor not having to bring in that earthwork equipment, and 2, once we have a brand new phase 1 building there, we don't want that heavy equipment ramming rock out right next to our brand-new footing. So we went ahead and asked them for a price. We've reviewed the price, the $19,357.95. We feel that's fair. Our design engineer felt like that was in line, so we bring that purchase order to you for consideration.
Motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you. Final is a construction recommendation to Dearinger Excavation in the amount of $123,945.87. This is for waterline improvements in the area of the Ute, Seneca, and Inca trails. This is around 2,000 linear feet of new waterline. The item of note here is this is a different way of procuring construction services. Instead of just an open bid, we're using our already established unit price contract, and that unit price contract is also open bid. On these smaller waterline projects, we found on recent projects that when we go with the low bid, our quality is sometimes not there in the contractor that we receive. So because the unit price contract, we priced that out, and that was in line with two engineers' estimates. We felt like this was the better route to go with a trusted contractor in Dearinger. So for your consideration.
Mayor, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Chase, I think council would agree. We've seen some instances where the low bid left bigger messes and took longer to do jobs than we were comfortable with. So if we can do procurement in a good way and avoid those scenarios, we're interested in that.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, and I believe Andrew's going to give us an update on a grant later for the sewers to the south, so we'll stick around for that in case there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's your sidekick there?
This is Sean.
Yeah. Hey, Sean.
He's awful quiet though, isn't he, huh?
Okay. Let's see. Under item 8, city attorney, we have a municipal order approving the privilege fee necessary for Lanes Run Business Park. This is
Simple.
just a classic. It's somebody put it in before us. We're reimbursing them for part of the cost that we would have paid had that not been done before we got here. Of course you do.
We like your maps.
Do you draw those, then make copies yourself? Is that how you do it?
GIS, Department of Planning and Zoning. And I also was gonna ask Chase to stick around too. I need to say anything, sir? Covered.
It's covered. It's the privilege fee in the amount of $348,668.90 for 108.3 acres.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Are there any questions for Jack?
I just want to make sure that I show you that on one side we don't have it, the second side we do have it.
The record reflect Jack has a map. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All that work.
Thank you,
Good, Jack.
Jack.
You can have your map back.
Beautifully done. The next item on your agenda, item B, is a council resolution ratifying the donation of the parcels of ground from Toyota. We're ready to have that closing, and we want your permission to accept the property.
Motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. This is a real straightforward transaction. Just lets me sign accept the deeds from Toyota. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item C, I want to take just a few minutes to explain and then give the council a timeline for some very important discussions that we're going to have. The issue of the sewer line to the south is finally getting to the point very quickly where it is time to discuss the details with City Council and the Water Board. we've known that this is a very complex transaction, and we've held off talking about the specifics until we were closer to having a user agreement worked out. The user agreement will govern the relationship between the owners of the trailer park and Georgetown Municipal Water and Sewer Service. We're closer to have that agreement ready. There is a grant that we can apply for, an EPA 319 grant, that can be a part of our overall funding for this south sewer line.
Good.
It can supply a link in this project, linear project that goes out. The 319 grants, we bring it to you for approval for us to apply for it, because 319 grants require a 40% match, significant amount of money. However, what we've worked out with the GMWSS Water Board of Commissioners is that the water company's willingness to waive the tap-on fees that would have been necessary in the trailer park. Those waived tap-on fees will equal the amount of our required contribution for the grant as an in-kind contribution. So because of a cooperative relationship between the city and GMWSS, we can apply for this grant and the cash match be met by this waiver of tap-on fees.
And how much is this grant?
$580,000.
Now, as I mentioned, that piece that we will ask you to approve tonight, the rest of this big funding package on how we can run the sewer line from the end of our system out near the trailer park, use the 319 grant to bridge a little piece of ground, and also have the infrastructure within the park all replaced, because that has to happen. The park has to be resewered.
Yeah.
In its entirety. I will have for you at our first council meeting in July, which is the 9th, our next council meeting on the 9th, we will spend a significant amount of time. I'll have a PowerPoint presentation, and we will walk through our concept for the South Sewer Line extension. Exactly what the obligations are, exactly what commitments have been made on either side, exactly what decision points the council will have. And that will also include some decisions for the water board. Then we want you to be in a position to act on that information on the 23rd. The reason this timeline has accelerated to this extent is when we got our pre-approval for the KIA loan. That's a very simple application. You reserve a spot in line, and they do a pre-evaluation of your application. Not surprisingly, this project ranked number 1. KIA wants us to do the project. The next step is KIA sends you, from that step, they send you an invitation to apply. Our invitation to apply was mailed last week. You have 45 days to apply or give it up. July 23rd will be the last council meeting we have to where we can seek your approval for the KIA loan within the time period. What I'm proposing is tonight, I think it's a fairly easy lift to apply for this grant. Then between now and July the 9th, I will make sure the Finance Committee has a clear understanding of what this package looks like, with the expectation of bringing it to you in detail on July the 9th. If we need a special council meeting in between then, I'm happy to schedule one. But if we're going to meet this KIA deadline, I'll have to ask you for action by July 23rd. So that is our timeline and our expectation, and just that's what we've got at this point. So I look forward to finally getting into the details of this project. So with that said, is there a motion to approve an application for an EPA 319 grant?
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
And second. Any questions? That was a whole bunch of information at one time. Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Item D on your agenda, a resolution approving our municipal road aid funds for 2019. Very routine piece of
Need a
business.
motion?
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Stacy, we're up to finance. Tonight, we have second reading of our cleanup ordinance for our current fiscal year. Again, the sponsors are Ms. Tackett and Mr. Leslie. Go ahead.
An ordinance amending the annual budget ordinance for fiscal year July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. Summary. General Fund. Prior year revenues are decreased by $227,025.48. Intergovernmental revenue is increased by $81,875. General government expenses are increased by $38,500. Fire expenses are increased by $100,000. Dispatch expenses are increased by $10,000. Public works expenses are increased by $14,300. Interlocal expenses are increased by $45,937.50. Transfers out are decreased by $353,887.98. Business Park Fund. Intergovernmental revenue is increased by $175,000. Transfers in are increased by $175,000. Expenses are increased by $350,000. Environmental Services Fund. Prior year revenues are increased by $11,400. Sanitation expenses are increased by $11,400. Landfill Fund. Transfer funds between line item expenditures resulting in no change to total expenditures. Capital Projects Fund. Prior year revenues are increased by $66,525.95. Intergovernmental revenues are increased by $52,912.03. Transfers in are decreased by $528,887.98. Capital expenses are decreased by $409,450. All ordinances or parts of this ordinance in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. This ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Publicly introduced and read for the first time June 11th, 2018. Publicly read the second time and passed June 25th, 2018.
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Again, this is all pretty straightforward. Shall we call the roll?
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames? Yes. Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion
For Hollywood.
carries. Let's see, we also have, Stacy has prepared a municipal order assigning fund balance. And this is Stacy's method of making sure that anything we've committed to buy that we have not, is not in next year's budget, we're earmarking a piece of our current fund balance to pay for it.
Okay.
So it's just our promise to you all, we're tracking all these things.
Just a brief explanation. All of the line items listed in the memo that's attached to the municipal order, as the mayor mentioned, are already contractual commitments that the work just isn't going to be quite finished by June 30, so it'll roll over. There's one new item, which is on for later in the agenda, which is the purchase of the grabber truck.
they had enough money left over in various line items in Public Works to cover that. So we would be taking the money left over out of their budget and carrying it forward.
Motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And seconded. If there are no questions about that municipal order, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. Sorry to keep you here so late for,
It's okay.
when there are no questions. Item 10 on your agenda, under the fire department, is a municipal ordering declaring a number of items surplus, and you've got that surplus list in your packet. Chief, anything you need to add about that? Pretty straightforward? All right.
Motion, Mayor.
Motion, thank you.
Second.
And seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Under Human Resources, again, we have two different amendments to the personnel ordinance. First, we have the second reading of the amendment to the personnel ordinance that was necessary from the budget that we just passed. It added the positions in Public Works and changed the one dispatcher to a supervisor. Those were, I think, the primary things.
Right.
So we have that second reading tonight.
An ordinance amending Section 2-111, subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to establish and remove certain positions. Summary. 1. Amend Section 2-111, subsection C of the Code of Ordinances, which sets forth the classifications, associated pay grades, and authorized positions for each department to increase the number of maintenance workers by 4, increase the number of crew leaders in the Public Works Department by 1, change the grade of crew leader from 6 to 8, decrease the number of telecommunicators by 1, and increase the number of shift supervisors by 1. 2, provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read the first time June 11th, 2018. Publicly read the second time June 25th, 2018.
Make a motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made
I'll second.
and seconded. Okay. That's an ordinance, so you have to call the roll.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Tingle Sames?
Yes.
Mr. Showalter?
Yes.
Mr. Lesby?
Yes.
Mrs. Singer Erdley?
Yes.
Mrs. Bitcher Conway?
Yes.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes.
Thank you. That leads us to first reading of another amendment to the personnel ordinance that we discussed earlier. This is adding the 5 part-time police officers to create the pool from which we'll run the school safety program. And it was sponsored by Mr. Showalter. It's not on the list, but Mr. Showalter. It's on your agenda, but Mr. Showalter's watching.
An ordinance amending Section 2-111, subsection C of the Code of Ordinances to add 5 part-time police officers, school resource officers in the police department. Summary. 1. Amend Section 2-11C of the Code of Ordinances, which sets forth the classifications, associated pay grades, and authorized positions for each department to add 5 positions of part-time police officer, school resource officer to the police department. 2. Provides for repeal of inconsistent ordinances, severability of provisions, and an effective date upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the City Clerk's Office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324, or at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced and publicly read for the first time June 25th, 2018.
Thank you. That will constitute first reading, and we'll have second reading at our first meeting in July. And under Public Works, well, I'll tell you what, I don't think there's any consensus on what we call these trucks. I call them grabber trucks.
I call them a gripper.
The gripper, that works.
We got to grab
As long as it
before they
works,
grip it.
we can call it.
Apparently on the agenda, they're called grapple.
Grapples.
Knuckle, they've been called knuckle boom.
I've been called a lot of things when they break down, ain't they?
Well, yeah. That's why we're here tonight.
That's actually why we're here tonight, Marvin. Funny you'd bring that up.
Well, Marvin knows.
Yeah.
Explained it to him.
We kind of blew up a very expensive engine in our grabber truck.
Yeah,
Public Works knows about it. We blew up a $30,000 engine
or more.
or more, and
Well, that's the estimate we got was 32,000.
and it's an old truck.
Yeah.
And we had one in our capital budget for next year.
We might as
So
well
we
spend
just-
money with the warranty.
We use it. We use them all the time. We use 2 of them all the time.
Every day, don't you?
And part of this decision came down to the low bid. It came down to timing, because we need to get Robert a truck.
We had 2 trucks that were available right away. One of them was 150, and one of them was like 139, almost 140. They were the high bid, but they were available right away. The low bid was a month or 2 out, so when me and the mayor talked about it, we've been 6 weeks about it, so we can wait another 6-8 weeks.
The recommendation is in your municipal order is that Robert's recommendation and my recommendation is that we accept the low bid. And we're pretty assured you can have delivery by August 1.
He said he could, yes.
That's, if this thing had been a 3 to 4 month delivery proposition, I would have asked council to consider some different solution. But if we can get Robert whole within 30 days.
We can't do it without it down that long, so. I'll make the motion, Mayor. I discussed it with Robert, and he's got the funds, it's not affecting the budget or his budget, so I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Millie.
Oh, Millie, thank you, okay. I was looking down and not looking around at everybody. If there are no questions,
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, a gentleman came up here and
Yes,
spoke earlier about his bid and the fact he's related to Toyota equipment. I mean,
We
we don't
did-
see a copy of that bid in here, so
Yeah, I can get you a copy of that
I'm
if you
just
want.
curious what the numbers
He was
were.
about, let me look, I think I might have it. 135,884 was Scott's bid. We looked at Scott's bid, because it was a Toyota truck, but if we were gonna have to wait, we decided to go with the low bid. I talked to Scott, he had several questions, and he understood about the low bid. One of his questions was, CMI, the company we buy it, is from Nashville, but they are the vendor for that particular brand of truck, Peterson, for this area. Right now, we have a Pac-Mac truck like Scott was gonna put on his, and we have a Peterson. As far as I'm concerned, they're virtually the same as far as operating, so.
Okay. What about the warranty that he was talking about?
The Hindu truck does have a good warranty, yes. But it's a little better than the other one.
But your recommendation still to go with the lowest bid?
Well, yeah, because it's just as good a truck.
Any other questions for Robert?
Nope.
If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, that is the end of the printed agenda.
Who won?
Isn't it? Yeah,
Who's betting on the time?
well, just. to
We're
be
not
all
done
done.
yet.
I'm losing.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
I think I'm gonna be a
I
winner
don't care
tonight.
because
I was 1.5 hours.
All right. Let's see you get
Andrew, what do you
Hey, don't
want?
gloat, Mayor.
My clerk
My
was
bad.
2 hours.
She can't win them all.
She came in.
What were you, Andrew?
That's right. Mark, can we start with you tonight?
I'm good.
You're good? Chuck?
What street was it at Clayton? I asked about last meeting?
Yeah.
Looks good.
Yeah, they fixed it. They fixed it a few days
There wasn't any time
later.
to put plates down, they just fixed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pretty impressed with, and I believe we sent you a copy of it, Chuck, the email that Chase sent on the very detailed way that it was gonna be repaired.
No, I did not get that. But it doesn't matter, it looks good.
But it looks good.
I thought we forwarded it to Chuck because he brought it up. Chuck, the next day we met and Chase sent a very detailed
Maybe he
email,
did.
exactly what steps would be done, and I thought you had gotten that.
I'm getting old, maybe I forgot about
And
it.
then on top of that, the whole street will be replaced.
And it is on our street paving list to do.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cover it all up with some good service.
Mayor, we appreciate you and Eddie Hightower working with us to get that bumped up on the priority list, because I feel like if we just replaced the section that our digging disturbed, the person right next to it would have been complaining that we didn't go one further, so I appreciate Eddie working with us there.
Good, thank you. Anything else, Chuck?
Nope.
Connie?
There's a big hole on Broadway.
State.
The light.
Sure is.
I know it is state. There's something wrong through that thing.
We have pestered.
Are we not allowed to put
Yes.
something in there, like a bag of concrete or something?
District 7?
Yeah, we've talked to the head of District 7.
Well, I
twice,
ran over the
3
hole
times.
with like that, and then
How'd you
see
do
these
it?
other people swing around it, and I was like, oh
I
my
don't see
God.
that.
But
How did you go? I missed that. How, when you hit it?
there's no instant replay, sorry. But I don't have anything else.
So I come that way to work every day. I'm familiar with exactly, and I keep
I
thinking,
usually come the other way. I come Payne's Depot and down West Main.
yeah,
But yeah, Broadway, and I was like, wow, state's
it's pretty
slipping.
ragged.
Yeah. Okay.
Karen?
203 Old Mill has some code enforcement issues that the neighbors are starting to complain about that are around them. And then the other thing is thank you, Mayor, for Friday night leading 100 people to sing happy birthday to me. So thank you. You did a wonderful job.
Guys, we had the opening Seed to Feed dinner,
Oh.
and it was at Ward Hall. There can't be a more beautiful place. And it was inside. I kept thinking we'd be outside, but Karen and them had decorated the inside, and it was gorgeous. And it was packed. Great turnout, and we did sing happy birthday.
And you said some wonderful words about what they are doing, the foundation out there taking care of Ward Hall and saving it, because it is a beautiful, beautiful landmark
Yeah.
for Georgetown, Scott County.
It's good to draw attention to.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You did a nice job.
Thanks. Anything else? David? Marvin?
If we know we can't make a certain meeting, like I know I won't be here on the 23rd, can we give, like, that sewer line is a very important vote. Can we give our proxy to the city attorney?
Nope.
Yeah. Call me on the phone if you need my vote.
And I don't even think we can do that.
I mean, I'm gonna be gone that week.
Well, and Marvin, it's the nature of life.
You know,
and
so-
you can't be at every meeting.
I just don't want my vote to be a vote that doesn't get that finished through. And I don't think it will be, because I'm pretty certain everybody on this council is in favor. But I just want to let you know up front, I will be out of town.
And we'll make sure, Marvin, that you have adequate time to understand it well before you leave.
Okay.
And if you have concerns or comments, we can give the council your thoughts. But
Okay, I'm just asking the question.
thank you. Holly?
Yeah, I had a question, since we're talking about schools and beautification and all that. Is there a way we could get something on the walls here? These walls.
Yes, these walls.
These walls.
Oh, yes.
And I've got
You mean
time.
other than the paint?
Other than the paint. But actually, I had an idea as we were talking, and I've been making notes. I wonder if there's a way we could partner with the schools and maybe like the high school art department. Because since we're, doing work with them, I think it would just make it really very fresh, and it would give the students an opportunity to display their art in a public facility. And I just think it would be interesting, because we kind of need something up, and just kind of the tide of the community as well, and, focusing
Walls are
on.
pretty bare right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
it's
it is,
really
you know.
barren. It's really kind of sad.
We got
so-
3 TVs and 2 monitors, and
Yeah.
that's
Good idea to come along.
We
to be
need
honest with you.
something. We really need something
Of
up.
the pictures that were in here,
Mhm.
the old pictures of Georgetown were okay.
Yeah.
But pictures of Keeneland,
Yeah, they were generic.
they were generic.
They were generic.
They
yeah.
were
Yeah.
just generic art that.
Well,
Yeah.
we also had an intention of having those old Georgetown pictures reframed, because the frames are just, they take up the whole wall. The
Well,
pictures are.
They do.
Maybe you modernize it, and I'm sure you all know more about this, but just do a canvas instead of a,
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool. I
and
just
make
think
some
of to really
kind of
modernize.
big and bold and.
Because we have so many people that come in here, and just to, because it's looking so
Well,
much
that's a
better.
good idea. Why can't we
you
have
know.
some old photographs and have a canvas created,
Yeah,
somebody that has a flair for that.
yeah.
Not me,
Somebody's got to give
probably Marvin.
architecture.
No.
I do. I'm the
The only
designer
canvas I
here.
ever used to is one that's on the back of my head.
Well,
I just think we need something.
we've got an opportunity to do something like this
Yeah.
because the walls have been freshened.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're looking at, with an architect, at potential changes. But
Yeah.
for right now, we need to
We really do. I mean,
Black and
because
white pictures would be
that and
beautiful.
all of this, we need something up.
It's beautiful
Whether it's
way it
pictures
is
or
compared to
history
what it
or-
was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, we took all the
Yes,
artwork
it is.
down to remove
Yeah, I
the
know.
ratty walls. Now
Yeah.
it's time to put something back up.
I think after being in Washington this past week and just seeing all the beauty and everything, it kind of spoiled me, so,
That's right.
yeah.
Thank you. Anything else, Paula?
Nope.
Melly?
Don't have a thing.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
What'd you win?
No.
You got
The one
pretty-
thing,
Just being right.
The one thing to update John, just real quick, I can't help myself. We did have another meeting with the architects, and we gave them some just quick feedback about, they'd given us some preliminary ideas, and we gave them some feedback, and they've given us some more plans to look at. They are quickly getting to the end of their contract, where they will come to the council and we will present all the findings about the building, the current condition of the building, all the systems. They'll show us images of the data point cloud that they made of the building, so they can slice the building and show you different floors. Drawings of what they might recommend to be done and general cost estimates. So that's getting much closer to being finished and getting ready to come back to the council. And with that, if there's no other business to come before the council,
And the
stand
winner
adjourned.
is.
The winner is.
Tom Prather. Number one.